Okay, weird question. Why does one kid trip over an untied shoelace, laugh it off, and keep running, while another kid experiences the exact same faceplant, like it's a personal betrayal from the universe? Because it was never really about the shoelace. It's about what's been happening in small, ordinary moments at home, for years before that fall ever happened. Turns out it comes down to 5 specific habits, quietly happening at home, that shape whether a kid can handle a hard moment or gets knocked flat by one. And here's the part that stings. None of them look like bad parenting. They look like gold star, did everything right parenting, which is exactly why nobody catches themselves doing it. Quick heads up before we start. You're probably going to recognize at least one of these, and honestly, that's basically every parent. The 5th one is the one most people miss completely, so it's worth sticking around for.
Habit 1. Never letting them feel bad. It starts small, usually in the most ordinary moments. Some households run like this. Bored? Here's the tablet. Cocomelon's loading before the whining even starts. Lost the board game? We're playing again until you win. Puzzle piece won't fit? Mom's hand is already reaching for it before the kid even registers frustration. Even the diaper bag has a backup snack for the backup snack. It comes from a genuinely sweet place. Nobody wants to watch their kid feel disappointed, ever, for any reason, even for 4 seconds over a puzzle piece. Psychologist Walter Mischel ran a famous experiment on this exact idea decades ago. He'd sit a small kid down with 1 marshmallow and tell them, if you can wait 15 minutes without eating it, you get 2. Then he'd leave the room and just watch what happened. Some kids caved in seconds. Others sat there squirming, doing everything they could to distract themselves, and made it to the end. And it's closer to a rep at the gym than an actual threat. A kid who's allowed to sit in, this is annoying, and I don't want to do it, for some uncomfortable minutes, and figures it out anyway, walks away with something real. Proof that they can survive being annoyed. Kids who once waited for marshmallows grew into better adjusted, more successful adults. They grew up doing better in school, staying calmer under stress, and steering clear of bad habits later on. So this isn't a let them suffer plan. Nobody's saying skip the birthday cake. It's smaller than that. Let the puzzle stay annoying for a few minutes before jumping in. Let I'm bored just sit there in the room, awkwardly, unresolved, until they invent something themselves. It feels almost rude to not fix it immediately. Do it anyway. Habit 2. Swapping boundaries for endless negotiation. Frustration is one thing. Boundaries are where it gets trickier. Picture this. Kid wants a cookie before dinner. Instead of no, like what follows is a full TED Talk. I hear that you're hungry, and I understand cookies are exciting. And let's talk about how our bodies need. 90 seconds later, kid still wants the cookie. And now they've also learned that no is really just the opening bid in a negotiation. This is a problem for one very unglamorous reason. Kids raised on constant negotiation never really get used to hearing no, and that catches up with them later. Because no is just part of life. A friend won't always feel like playing. A test won't always go your way. A job won't always come through. None of that is up for debate. It just happens. And the only real choice is how fast someone can accept it and move on, instead of getting stuck arguing with reality. A kid who's spent years turning every no into round 2 of a negotiation hasn't built that muscle. So the first real, immovable no life hands them is going to feel like whiplash instead of just another Tuesday. Being firm doesn't mean removing kindness. It just means adding a floor underneath it. I know you really want that cookie. Still no. In that order. Every time.
Habit 3. Keeping the same soft voice for everything. Saying no is only half of it though. The other half is how it actually sounds coming out of your mouth. There's a very specific parenting voice. You know the one. Sing-songy, extra gentle, like you're narrating a Bluey episode. The issue is when that exact voice gets deployed for, please stop hitting your sister with the remote. Sweetie, we don't hit. Hands are for gentle touches. Setting the same tone you'd use to narrate a picture book does something weird to a toddler's brain. Research by Tobias Grossman found that babies as young as 7 months respond to the emotional tone of a voice. It turns out we process vocal tone in different brain regions than the actual words. Because toddlers' language systems are still developing, they often respond more strongly to how something is said than to the exact words being used. If the voice says, "This is basically fine," the message underneath, the real rule, doesn't land, no matter how correct the sentence technically was. You don't need to raise your voice. Stop. I won't let you hit her. Said flat and serious, like you mean it, because you do. That's the whole trick. Habit 4. Making their feelings the only thing that matters. Stay with that same hitting example for a second, because it shows up again from a different angle. This one sounds backwards until you actually watch it happen. Kid hits sibling. What follows is a very thorough, very gentle conversation entirely about the hitter's feelings. You must have been so frustrated. That makes complete sense. Let's go regulate. Meanwhile, the other kid is standing there with an actual lump forming on their arm, completely unacknowledged, like a background extra in someone else's therapy session.
Validating feelings is genuinely good parenting. Nobody's arguing that part. What I found on sibling conflict research keeps landing on the same pattern. Validating only the aggressor backfires when it's the entire conversation, with zero follow-up about the person who got hit, or an apology, or anything at all about what just happened to somebody else. Kids need both halves. You are frustrated can exist right next to, and you still owe your brother an apology because hitting hurts. One covers the inside. The other actually trains the mirror neurons that eventually let a person register they've truly hurt someone. Habit 5. Removing every uncomfortable consequence. Apologies are one kind of accountability. Consequences are the other, and they're just as easy to skip. Toy gets thrown across the room. It gets picked up by mom 10 minutes later. No comment, no consequence. Kid refuses to get dressed for school for the 4th morning in a row. Another conversation happens instead of, an actual consequence. Somewhere in there, disappointment stops showing up on a parent's face at all because watching your kid feel bad is its own kind of unbearable. Child development research keeps coming back to the same finding. Kids feel safest when doing X reliably leads to Y. Take that away, and a kid ends up testing limits constantly because the limits keep moving or just vanishing entirely. This has nothing to do with harsh punishment. It's actually the opposite of chaos. Toy thrown, toy disappears for the afternoon. No drama attached, no lecture required. That kind of boring, predictable follow-through is doing more work than it looks like.
Stack all 5 of these on top of each other across the childhood, and a pattern starts to form. None of these 5 habits come from bad parenting. They come from love. Love that ends up protecting a kid from the small, uncomfortable moments that actually build resilience. And the good news, it's not too late to change any of it. The part of the brain that handles planning, impulse control, and decision-making keeps developing all the way into someone's mid-20s. So pick one habit and work on it this week. Let a puzzle stay hard for a while instead of immediately stepping in. Hold a boundary you'd normally soften. Let a small consequence actually happen instead of talking your way around it. Tell me in the comments which habit hit closest to home, and send this to a parent who needs to hear it.